Professor Steiner here, and by way of introduction to what you're going to be learning, I want to discuss my method of teaching, and elements of it I think will help you if you are a teacher, an instructor, and it will also help you in training yourself and working with the very excellent presentations of Professor Bryans. One of the ways I learned how to teach was by doing the opposite of the experience I had with teachers and observing how they taught. And this goes back, I'm not only talking about martial arts, I'm talking about elementary school primarily. I don't know how these individuals who were teachers got jobs as teachers, but they were terrible. Bad tempers, impatient, favoritism was shown all the time, and it was just a mess. So going in the opposite direction of the teaching that I received as a boy in elementary school helped me a great deal. Another thing that helped me a great deal was questioning the way the training I received in classical jiu-jitsu and karate, or taekwondo and kempo, was administered. You probably, if you are familiar with martial arts classes, have experienced training very similar to what I experienced, and that is, in a karate class, the class lines up and people are taught to do each basic technique by the numbers, maybe some combinations of blocks and kicks and punches, and then kata, and then 1, 2, 3-step sparring, then freestyle at the end of the class. It's okay, it does instill the skills of karate over time. In jiu-jitsu, we did the inevitable warm-up period, then we paired up, and we went through the various holds or throws or self-defense techniques that were the order of the day. There was a difference, of course, in the short-term courses I took. The preeminent one, of course, it really turned out not to be so short-term because I stayed with them for a number of years, was with Charlie Nelson. I also took a course in what he called Jakata under Cesar Bujosa, whose primary style was Goshindo Kempo. It was an excellent 15-lesson course, by the way. There was no class instruction. It was just you went for your lesson, you took the lesson, and that was it. And then I took private lessons with Kyoshi Nakai in Jiu-Jitsu, and at the Sigward Sports Academy in the Sigward system, which is also where Nakai taught. So I learned a lot about private lessons, classes, and so on. And I learned, I think, what was wrong with the way the martial arts were taught. Absolutely vital when it comes to teaching classes is instilling and imparting mindset, the proper attitude, the principles of mental conditioning must be addressed. And this is done in a number of ways, but I have not any experience in my own background of learning in martial arts classes where it was done at all in class. Very, very rare mention was made of, well, you've got to have a serious attitude. Well, you've got to be ruthless. Well, you've got to do this and that. But these are vital things. And it was my study of hypnosis, which I undertook in part because I was interested in learning about conditioning the mind, that taught me to consider a new approach in teaching the classes. Now, I need to explain something to you about hypnosis and how it works to explain to you the teaching method for classes that I developed and that I use, and that I'm sure Professor Bryans has familiarized his students with. In hypnosis, very briefly, the conscious reasoning mind is placed in a temporary state of abeyance. It's distracted. It's not completely deadened or eliminated. That can't be done. But it's distracted. It's put to sleep, in a manner of speaking, so that you have direct access to the subconscious mind of the subject. And when you have direct access to the subconscious, it becomes very easy to implant ideas and to remove ideas as you see fit and as the subject wants to have it done. Now, we take it for granted anyone coming to a class in self-defense and close combat wants to be conditioned for self-defense and close combat. So I guess it could happen, but I doubt you'll find anybody resisting the mental conditioning that takes place when and if it is applied during the course of a martial arts class, as we apply it in American Combato. The distraction that takes place in class is not distraction by the hypnotist or the teacher putting the subjects in a trance state. The distraction takes place for the conscious mind by having the students focus intently on the techniques that are being called out for them to do. So, for example, the first part of a class consists of high, repetitious drill of basic blows, basic techniques. Chin jab, hand axe chop, chin jab smash, back fist forearm smash, knee attack, front kick, side kick, reverse punch to the sternum. These are basics we do in class. When the student concentrates intently on them, and after basics, attack combinations, his mind is distracted. His conscious mind is focused on the techniques. He's doing chin jabs. He's visualizing that opponent. He's visualizing that he's hitting somebody. He's concentrating on visualizing, and he's concentrating on going after that attacker. At that moment, his subconscious is very reachable with programming and conditioning. And so what I do when I instruct a class is use a steady stream of verbal patter to reach the subconscious minds of the students as they train. For example, I have the class going through, take the chin jab, just for example. While they're going through the chin jab, I will be saying, get in close, get your body behind it, hit hard, your life is at stake. This guy's got a knife, hit him, hit, and by instilling what I want that individual's mind to absorb and believe and be conditioned to do, after a succession of classes, a process has taken place very similar on the mental level to the process that takes place when in hypnosis you instill the suggestions that you wish to instill. This occurs concurrent with the practice of techniques, and this has the effect of causing the students to associate, without exception, the application of that technique with a situation in which it must be applied. to maintain a steady mental state that is appropriate to that which is needed in combat for self-defense. I very often will say to a class while they're in training, remember what's at stake. Remember what's at stake. Obviously, this encourages the student to think in terms of his very life is imperiled. The life of his loved ones, the lives of his loved ones, his child, perhaps, if he's with his child when they're attacked. Maybe he's saving his child from kidnapping. The repetition of this, class after class after class, causes a process to occur with the student's mind that is very similar to the process that occurs through repetitious drill of his body. The mind, too, is conditioned by repetition. You were taught as a child, pick up your clothes, don't leave your hat lying there, don't leave your jacket lying there, over and over and over again, until finally you learn. Or you got swatted on the butt, and you learned that way. This is very important to understand. Repetition is necessary. This is one of the reasons why, if you do attend a short-term course, you must be prepared to practice and work on everything you were taught. It's not enough just to be shown a technique, see that you know how to do it, learn the process, and you've got it. That's not what happens. It has to be embedded in your subconscious, embedded in your motor memory, so that in a crisis, you perform. Visualization is very important, and I emphasize again and again when students are training in the class, doing whatever they're doing, side kick to the knee, side kick to the knee, that they visualize, this guy's going to hit you, he's pulling a knife, he's going to choke you, he's doing this, he's doing that, and by associating the aggression of an opponent with your reactive aggression, you instill in yourself the process of responding to an attack with your own attack, which of course is attacking your assailant, attack the attacker, one of our basic principles. A class that I teach goes for an hour. And by the way, I completely eliminate warming up exercises, calisthenics, and these sorts of things. Not because they're not valuable, but because a student can do that easily on his own. And the best way to warm up for class is to start in doing the techniques gradually. That doesn't mean you can't be focused intently on the mental level. You can be doing a technique very relaxed and visualize the opponent right there. You can be doing a technique very relaxed, but have a serious attitude of aggression wired into your head. And that's what we do. Repetition, repetition, repetition. I always encourage students to, well, for one thing, weight training. And we'll talk about that at a future time, how it's done, how you should do it. Certain types of calisthenics, if you like them, fine. Do it at home. Do it at a gym. You come to class to do combat techniques. I don't want to eat up your time taking you through exercises. This is not an exercise class. You will get good exercise in an effectively run class. I can remember times, for example, when I had students in the dead of winter, literally dripping sweat. They were training so hard. But the exercise benefit, the physical fitness, pardon me, the physical fitness benefit, that's an ancillary benefit. That's not why you're training. You're training for survival. The final part of every class, after basics and combinations, is drilling with a practice partner, going over techniques with a live opponent. And this is important. This is valuable for you, but it doesn't, in a way, the fact that you're working with a partner who you know is distracting because you know him and you can't really feel that he's an enemy as you can when you're visualizing and working with a training dummy or working in the air. It's very important that you practice with your training partners doing the techniques exactly as you will do them in combat, with one exception: no contact with vital areas. Now you'll see, as Mark demonstrates the various counterattacks, these are very serious techniques. Attacking the eyes, attacking the ears, the testicles, the knees, the kidneys, the sternum, the solar plexus, the bridge of the nose, the philtrum under the nose. These are target areas that will cause serious injury and in some cases death. So don't make the mistake of thinking that you can bypass learning this. This is what you need, but don't make the mistake of practicing it in a reckless way. Now, in some cases, people rely upon sparring or a free exchange of techniques, which they carefully modify so that contact can be made. So, for example, they would not go for those vital areas. In karate sparring, for example, you're not allowed to stomp kick into someone's knee. That's crazy. You use high kicks. You're not allowed to use fingertip thrusts to the eyes. Use a punch to the face, and so on. Well, that is unrealistic training for two reasons. First, you're conditioning yourself to use techniques that you won't use in the street. Second, you're giving yourself dual commands. Oh, in the street, remember to kick for the knee, but here, kick high for the chest area or the head. You're confusing yourself. You're not going to remember consciously to change what you're doing when somebody jumps you suddenly when you're walking through a parking garage. It doesn't happen that way. You will do what you were trained to do. You will do what you were trained to do. Now, I personally am teaching self-defense and close combat. Mark and I are teaching only for that purpose. Students who come to us for self-defense. They're not interested in competition. So for them to practice anything in a diluted way for safety would be a mistake. I'm not, just to briefly say this, I'm not against competition. I'm not against whatever anybody wants to do. I'm just saying that for self-defense, if you want to be conditioned to react like a wild animal when somebody attacks you, you have to practice that. When somebody grabs your jacket and yanks you forward, you go for the eyes. Well, you have to be conditioned to do that by repetitious drill. And it's perfectly safe to do that if when you practice, you don't actually contact the eyes. That's just one example. So, practicing the basic blows, practicing the attack combinations, both of those elements can be practiced with striking posts, dummies, heavy bags, or in the air. As long as visualization is there, you can make all the contact you want with practice aids that permit you to do that. No problem. But you don't make contact with your practice partner, and you never fail to go right after the most vital target areas of the body. You want that wired in, programmed, so that, God forbid, if you're ever in a situation where you do need to defend yourself, you go whole hog, and there is no question about what you're doing being effective. An attacker in the street is hard to stop. Very often, a punch to the head that would get you a point in jiu-kumite, freestyle sparring, it's nothing. It'll get you nothing. In the street, you punch the guy, he gets angrier and he kills you. You don't want to do that. You want to program yourself to chop for the throat, the neck, the face, move in with eye attacks, headbutt him in the face, elbow him across the head. No diluted techniques. Go right for the jugular every time. Day after day after day after day of training. And the mental conditioning that occurs from the pattern that takes place during the class gradually brings you up to a point where you can feel it, you're ready. And your body has not trained in anything that it won't do under combat conditions. I had a very interesting experience with one of my students who is today a black belt. When he started with me, he had had prior instruction in Thai boxing, karate, and jiu-jitsu. He had trained for a long time. If you put all those three subjects together, I guess he had years of training. He was a young man, he was in good condition. And he said to me, I have these dreams where somebody's attacking me and I can't move fast. Well, just a little lesson in psychiatry. Sigmund Freud pointed out correctly, dreams are the royal road to the subconscious. Meaning, of course, that what you're dreaming is symbolism. It's symbolic of what you are actually living, or what you feel or believe or like or don't like. It's a reality in symbolism. And symbolic of being unable to defend is that sense of, I can only move slowly if he's attacking. I can't do it right. This was after years of jiu-jitsu, Thai boxing, and karate. Now, after it was no more than a month of training, he said to me after class once, you know, I'm having dreams now where this guy attacks me, I kill him. I go after this guy with both feet. It's amazing. I never felt this way before. That was due to the approach in training that we use. It programs you mentally and physically. Class drill is very important. And if you train with our DVDs or on your own at home, repetitious discipline drill is very important. Try to duplicate the way we do the classes. Get your mind focused on desperation. I want my students to be afraid and desperate. I don't want them walking around with a cocky attitude and, well, they can beat anybody. No. because fear energy can save your life. And when you learn to take that fear and channel it into hatred and rage and aggression, you've learned a big secret about winning in close combat. I want to say a word also about private lessons, because the way I teach private lessons is not by running somebody through a mini class, so to speak. Private lessons have three primary purposes. Number one, a purpose could be to teach a new technique. There's nothing as effective as one-on-one training to teach someone a new technique. The class drill instills the techniques. Practice at home, repetitious drill instills the techniques. But first they must be learned. By carefully and patiently going over a technique with a student, they learn it. Another purpose to private lessons is correcting mistakes that may have occurred during class or during their review of what they had learned previously. We want to correct mistakes, make sure they're always on track. And another purpose of private lessons, very important, is instilling theory and getting students to understand concepts and principles. For example, the combat color code, which we teach. The specific color code that I teach derives from Jeff Cooper, the firearms authority. I don't teach it exactly as Cooper taught it, but I teach that color code: white, yellow, orange, red. Now, that's much better explained slowly, systematically, carefully in a private lesson, during a private lesson. Theories of the use of strength, answers to questions, all best done in a private lesson. So in our system, private lessons and group classes work together. You learn new material, you have corrections to mistakes, you ask whatever questions are pertinent to you as an individual, and you learn a good deal of theory. You learn a lot about the particulars of detail that you need to know in private lessons. Classes run you through hard drill, repetitious drill, and instill mindset through mental conditioning that occurs while you are physically training in the techniques. This works together so that in a relatively short time, this is not an overnight miracle. There are no miracles, there are no secret systems or mysterious processes that you can use that'll quickly turn you into a master or an expert. This is all nonsense. There are no mysteries, there are no secrets, there are no special skills. Don't look for them. Knuckle under, knuckle down, get your nose to the grindstone, work on the basics just as Professor Bryans is demonstrating them. Work on the combinations, work on the counterattacks, but carefully, and get that attitude, that mindset. And that's what you do to learn to defend yourself. If you're in the military, to learn how to handle hand-to-hand combat. No secrets, no mysteries. I also include teaching weapons in our system. Weapons are essential. This is a martial art in the true sense of the word, of or pertaining to war. I know people refer to judo and boxing and karate and MMA and this sort of thing as martial art. Well, it's a martial sport. It's a combat sport. Combat art is, as the Japanese define it, combat art. They distinguish combat sport, combat art. It's an art of war. We're concerned about defeating an enemy and saving our lives. We have no interest in the sport end of it. That's a legitimate concern. If you love sport, that's fine. That's nothing wrong with that. But that's not what we do. We're focused purely on defense and close combat. Weapons are essential, and they are introduced incrementally in the system, as well as the use of objects at hand as weapons. Don't fight a dangerous individual with your bare hands when you've got something to use in lieu of your hands or in addition to your hands. We're not concerned about ethics. We're not concerned about fair play. There's no referee present when you're mugged. There's no rule book to follow when 3 people jump you. You don't have to worry about a timekeeper in a home invasion. You do what it takes to knock out, maim, injure, or if necessary and legally permissible in a given situation, and moral, kill to save your life or to save another innocent life. That's what self-defense is about. It's not a sport. A couple of things about teaching also. I don't believe in roughhousing with a student beyond the training and the counterattacks, obviously. Patience is critical. My attitude toward teaching is very simple. I believe a teacher's job is to demand the possible. What I mean by that is, as a teacher, you have to find out what is possible for each and every student as an individual. And once you find that out, it's your responsibility as a teacher to draw that out of them, to teach them in accordance with their ability to learn and do. Everybody is different. Everybody is unique. And if you call yourself a teacher, it's your job to adjust to that uniqueness. In regard to this, I'll say it, you have no right to be impatient with a student. That doesn't mean you should put up with a lot of bullshit from a student. Students will ask questions. There's a big difference between asking questions and questioning the teacher.